Okay guys, this is the reassembly for the Ruger Mini-14. You can see I've got the pieces of my firearm all over the table here. Doesn't look like a lot of pieces, and it's not. Of course, if you have this manual, all the instructions that I give you pretty much are going to be in here, minus some of the little tips. They won't be in there. But that's why I'm doing this video. I got a lot of interest on firearm disassembly and reassembly videos. Seems people are interested in that, so that's what we're going to do. So this reassembly is something you shouldn't be afraid of. If you've taken your gun apart and perhaps you've gone to put it back together and you've gotten into some sticky parts, don't be afraid of it. You can't hurt this gun trying to put it back together, and there's not really going to be anything that you're not going to be able to get through. So we're going to do this right now. All right, so hang on. Okay, so we're going to put the bolt in, and this is the part that I'm going to show you that's going to be a tip that may save you a lot of trouble. It took me a while to figure it out, but I actually figured it out by watching the Ruger Tech Tips guy. He doesn't say anything about what he's doing, but if you watch closely at the video, you'll see that he does one particular thing that allows him to so easily put that bolt back in. Let me show you the bolt. This is the bolt. You see the firing pin pops out right there. See that firing pin? I'll use this screwdriver as an illustration right there. Firing pin pops out. That's what impacts the rear of the cartridge. But on the other end of the bolt is the firing pin projection. Now this thing is basically the entire firing pin. The front part pops out. Front part pops in and out of there. Back part is what's moving back here. Okay? You can see this thing moving right here. That's the part that gives you the trouble. Okay? So what I do is I hold the bolt this way. And when I hold the receiver, I put my finger, my index finger, up through the receiver coming out the top. And before I even start, I take my finger and I put it on to that firing pin projection piece right there, and I pull it out so that the firing pin is actually a little bit retracted because I'm holding it and pulling this out right here. And you want to keep it in the out position like this. When you put your bolt in at your 45-degree angle, your finger will actually guide that thing right through the place where it's supposed to be, inside there. It's got to go right through this spot. Let's see if I can show you this. Right down in here is where it has to get through. And by doing that with your finger, okay, do it again. You grab this with your finger. You just hold this out a little bit. You hold it. You put a little tension on and hold it so it's extended. Put the bolt in there. Just a little bit of wiggling. The bolt goes right in. It's that simple, guys. Nothing to be afraid of. Practice it. You'll figure it out just by watching that 10 seconds of my instruction, and you playing with the bolt, it'll be no problem. The rest of the rifle goes back together without a hitch. All right, so now we're going to go to the next step. All right, so now that we've got the bolt reinstalled back in place, we're going to keep the bolt in the forward locked position. Okay, this is pulled back. This is the forward lock position. That little knob down. And we're going to go to reinstall the bolt lock and the plunger assembly. Now this is pretty easy. Remember this little spring. I'm going to show you a close-up of this little spring. You'll notice that on this spring there's a notch cut in the top of the rod that sits in the spring. When you put that spring into this hole here, you want to face that notch toward the inside, okay? So that it's going to line up with the bolt lock. Okay, now this bolt lock goes down into the gun this way. And when you put it in here, you want to make sure that that little tiny notch right in there, that little pin is lined up with this little notch goes inside there. This little protrusion on the end of the bolt lock sits inside the notch on the pin. Okay? Now we just simply reinstall the door And remember, it's got this arrow on it. You want the arrow facing down toward the ground, not facing up toward the top of the receiver, facing down. Okay, one side is kind of flat. The other side has that protruding little notch. You want the notch pointed down. Slide the door back into the little groove. Put it up until it snaps. Okay, now that's reinstalled. Okay, so the next step is going to be to reinstall the gas block cover. That's just this thing. Remember we took this off? It just goes on real simple with this little clip that goes over the barrel. So if you notice here, you slide this, if you're looking at the gun in the upright position, you would slide the end of this thing so that it goes inside the gas block housing up there. Okay, turn the gun over like this. Make sure that it's straight down in there, right in here. Make sure that it's straight. And then right here, squeeze, because the little clip is right around in here. Squeeze that till it clips on. You can then move it around to straighten it. Okay? This thing will still move, but you'll be able to see by eye that it's straight in here. That's the important thing. Okay? The next thing is to reinstall the lever. Okay, or the slide. I call it the lever. Now remember, the slide is what goes onto the gas block here, okay? So what you're going to do is look for that little space now that is now going to have been, now that we put this cover back on, this gas block cover, there's now a little space again right here. Just put your little slide in there, just at the thin part. Rotate it so that it's onto the barrel. And retract your bolt a little bit. Now this is a tricky part, but right around in here, the bolt, right in here, see this little piece here? This has to line up. Let me take this off and show you first before we go any further. That little knob on the bolt has to go into here. This is important. When you put this lever back on, you have to take this bolt and retract it a little bit to where when you put the slide back on, you can get that little knob, this little round knob, right here to line up so that it seats into here. This is important. This is what allows the bolt to retract and move around by using this lever. Okay, so we're going to slide the bolt back a little bit. Okay, slide it back to around here. Right here. And then put the lever on there. And now, when it's on, you'll notice that I can slide the bolt all the way forward. You watch the bolt, you'll see that the bolt follows along the track while I'm sliding the lever. Closes properly. Okay? Just like that. Now leave the bolt in the closed position. And let's get the little camera angle better on here now so we can see this a little bit. All right, I think you should be able to see that. Okay, so closed position on the bolt. Bolt pushed all the way forward. Now we're going to put the bushing back in. Now remember this bushing, I showed it to you when we took it apart. It has a flat side on one side, round side on the other. Remember, you want the flat side facing down toward the barrel. The purpose of this is to hold this recoil spring and rod in place. Okay, so we're going to put the bushing with the flat side down toward the barrel into its little space here. We're going to take this little rod that holds it in place and we're going to put it through the hole. Now the bushing is secure in there. I mean, if I tilt it, it comes right out. It's supposed to do that. You might think, wow, this thing's pretty loose. It just falls apart. Once the gun's put together, this has nowhere to go, so it won't fall out. So we've got this down. We've got the flat side down. Now we're going to feed the recoil spring and rod. Oops, see the way it comes out? You just knock this over, it comes right out. Don't be afraid of that. It's going to happen. Now we're going to feed this spring inside the lever here. This goes into the gas block. And with two hands, now when you put it in there, you want to put it in there so that the, this rod keeps falling out. This little thing, you want to have this thing so that it's like the recess is facing up, okay? See the way it is? Okay, so you want to push this spring in here with 2 hands. Just feed it in there very slowly, just until you can get enough where you can clear this part and get it inserted into the bushing. You don't have to put the spring all the way in, but you do have to put a couple of inches into it. And then when you get it down there where the rod is in there, you can put the rod and the spring in there. You can see it's in there tight now. Notice that this rod is not falling out anymore. The bushing's in there securely. This little pin doesn't come out anymore. It's in there for good. Okay? The next step is we're going to reinsert the barrel receiver assembly back onto the stock. Now we take the stock and we hold the barrel receiver assembly in one hand. We take the stock. Now, careful now with this, because right around here, it has to go into this end. You can see where it goes. It just goes in there easily. Don't drop this down yet. You want to make sure that you don't damage the wood. You want to make sure that it's fitting in there, ready to slide in there. Okay. Once it slides in, you don't damage the wood. You just slide it back on top. Seat the receiver on top of the stock. Turn the gun back upside down. Invert the rifle. Okay. Now we're going to reinsert the trigger assembly. This is pretty easy. Okay. So now we're going to put the trigger assembly back into the rifle. Okay, we're going to reinstall it back into the rifle. Now, remember that we took this out pretty easy. Well, it goes in pretty easy too. Now, there's 2 things I want to show you before we do that. If you notice right here, you see this milled out recess? This is a guide. This recess on the stock is a guide for where you are to position this. Okay, if you notice right here, this piece right here, this rounded piece is perfectly shaped to match that cutout area, okay? So what we want to do is, with the rifle inverted like this, you want to line up that rounded piece, this piece right here, right over the top of this recess, by eye, line it up, okay? Then tilt it a little bit so that this end here is down. So you tilt the back end up just a little bit, and it slides right in there just like that. Once it slides in there and you're confident that it's down in there good, okay? It's down in there good, put your hand on top of the trigger guard and press it till it clicks. Just like that. Now, cycle the action a couple of times. Make sure that the bolt's moving freely. Pull it back, press the bolt lock plunger, make sure the action stays open. Okay? Pull it back, release the bolt. Take the safety off, pull the trigger. Notice that the firing pin's working good. You're good to go. Now the next thing I do is I reinstall my sling and put my magazine back and put my gun back where it goes, which is basically in a gun case. And you're good to go. I hope you enjoyed the video. There's nothing to this rifle. Follow the steps, practice that part with the bolt. Now when you put the magazine back in, by the way, you tilt the magazine forward a little bit till you put it into there, seat it, and click it until it clicks. Okay? Make sure that it's solid when you put a magazine back in there. That's how it's properly seated. And your rifle's ready to go. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a great rifle, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, guys.